Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of MarTalks. And my next guest today is one crafty MarTech e-commerce cat who currently sits in the captain's chair at BigCommerce, but who spent his formative years crisscrossing the digital agency landscape with Amplify, PFS, LiveArea, and Accenture. Get ready to climb into the Wayback Machine with our friend, my guest, Travis Hess. Welcome to MarTalks, Travis.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for having me, man. That was a nice, energetic lead-in. I don't get that a lot, so I appreciate it.
Well, e-commerce CEOs really should be preceded by a band and and have theme music. So I'm providing my own today. I would recommend it for you. I know there's plenty of great talent for music in Austin. So I would encourage you to kind of reach out to the community and see what they can put together for you.
Yeah, I kind of like that, the USC marching band and the Tusk album for Fleetwood Mac. That would be great. They would have the theatrical sort of dramatic element of it, which probably overkill. But yes, it's a great music scene in Austin for sure. Lots of options there.
That talk about the Wayback Machine. I mean, that was a killer video. I mean, they're in the Rose Bowl. They're dancing all around. That great. Was when they were all still with us. I mean, I was besought with.
Yeah, I've got an old photo of Stevie Nicks, and somewhere on the wall over there, back there. That back in the good old Rumors days, probably from the late '70s. That I don't know. It's the music I grew up listening to around my parents, and it never gets old. It just sparks some semblance of nostalgia, but I think still carries true to the day for people that didn't grow up around it. I think still have a deep appreciation. So, hey,
how can you not appreciate Fleetwood Mac? I mean, you really would have to be a dullard. And for all those people who are listening that don't appreciate Fleetwood Mac, I'm going to double down and say Stevie Nicks was the greatest singing partner Tom Petty ever had.
Ooh, okay. That's a bold statement. I can't disagree with that. I mean, she duetted with a few. I mean, Don Henley comes to mind as well, and a few others. But yeah, I think there's a great documentary called I think it's called Making the Album, and it's the making of Rumors. If you haven't seen it, it's a little dated, but absolutely fast. It's probably from like late 90s or whatever, where they go back to the studio in like Sausalito where they cut Rumors and like all the drama in the band with, Christy McVie and John McVie breaking up and Stevie and Lindsey Buckingham breaking up and Mick Fleetwood kind of in the middle of all of it. It's with all the folks that cut that album and mixed it in the actual studio, still in Sausalito with several of the band members. It is, it's one of the better musical or band-oriented documentaries I've seen.
Yep. My apartment on Bridgeway in Sausalito was about 2 blocks from that studio. So I've been there.
Ah, nice.
Felt the vibe, smelled the smoke that had come out of those Lucky Strikes 30 years ago. And, have cancer to show for it. But, I'm rolling with that because that's the kind of guy I am. Yeah. So, I hate to do this, because I could talk about music forever with somebody who's from my decade. But we're going to segue just a little bit. You happen to have a job today.
Today, that's a good point. Today,
which is kind of where all of us are in the world of e-commerce. It's like, what's going to happen now? The AI agents are going to come and take everything away. What's up with that? So you're with BigCommerce. I've always been a huge fan of BigCommerce. I go back with BigCommerce to when Todd Klubnik was their CRO once upon a day. It was kind of I think it was the third company that I had recruited for Todd at. I think we started out at Zilliant, another fine Austin startup, still with us in the startup scene. Yeah. Todd was just a great CRO. He was also a ball buster. I think I had to present, 5,000 resumes to get an interview, something ridiculous. It was just, he put me through the ringer. Nonetheless, everybody that he hired ended up doing great. But, let's talk about BigCommerce because, you're still recently installed in the chair,
Mhm.
in the world of, I don't know, long-term professionals, tenure or whatever.
Sure.
And that's, no pun intended, a big responsibility, um, because you're kind of every day going to work and selling into the teeth of the big bad wolf in e-commerce in Shopify. I mean, yeah. I mean, do you jump out of bed with that prospect? Or you just like, hell yeah, let's go. I'm going to show
Yeah.
these Canadians how to do business.
uh, yes, I do. Although, listen, my relationship there is complicated, and I've been fairly public about this too. I loved my time with Shopify, like I really did. Personally and professionally, I still have many friends there that I deeply love and respect, and former employees there that have gone on to do other things. And listen, I think they've done an amazing job for all the obvious reasons, and to be part of that kind of run up into the space as tangibly as I was, albeit from the services side of the business, was amazing and fulfilling on a number of levels. Now, that being said, there's a reason I came here, and not anything against Shopify. I don't think going there, if that was an option, would have mapped necessarily to my skill set or what would have been fulfilling. And again, not because I'm, everything since sliced bread. It wasn't as interesting. I felt like the opportunity here, and just with the collection of assets and where the business was at the time, I felt like was a much more interesting opportunity for me personally, to go leave my fingerprints on something and be part of it and transform the business into something that in some ways compete with Shopify. But that's the other misnomer too. I don't view them as a direct competitor in many capacities. And I know that may sound odd and unorthodox to some people. Listen,
No.
they have their own ICPs that they compete,
Yeah.
and in some cases dominate. And good for them. That takes a lot of skill and capabilities to do it, and a lot of investment. I think we have our own. And I think we have a different collection of capabilities here than what they do. And for me, and where the market's going, I feel like it gives us an advantage, albeit being a fraction of their market cap and their size. But I am competitive, and yeah, I mean, listen, I read the trades and watch LinkedIn, and yeah, they've got a lot of what I would call, the shopperazzi on LinkedIn, amplifying that message. And I understand the enthusiasm behind that ecosystem and things like that. And, people dog us a lot publicly, and maybe we deserve it for where the business is or was, or in some cases subjectively where people think that we're going. But, listen, of course I'm competitive, and yes, I'm motivated to go out and not so much compete directly with them per se, although where we find ourselves in similar deals, yeah, I want to kick their ass, as I suspect they want to kick ours. But I'm not worried as much about what they're doing. They're doing okay on their own. I'm worried about what we're doing, and that's where the focus is. And if that so happens to overlap from time to time, there, certainly we're prepared to do that. I get asked the question a lot, obviously, given my history, and listen, I get the questions, and I'll continue to get them. It's totally fine, but I don't have any ill will towards them, certainly. But yeah, if we're competing, I would very much like to kick their ass. And I do think we do certain things better than they do. And my focus has been focusing on those ICPs, those areas, those differentiators and capabilities, and doing a better job of telling that story and articulating it and executing against our own strategy and market, despite the size differences and the publicity differences, which, again, they get a lot more attention certainly than we do.
Well, I'm not hearing what I want to hear, which is basically that when you and Tobias are sitting on the floor at Shop Talk, that it's kind of like Bird and Magic, and that classic rivalry where you're just trash talking each other, and you're getting emails, you're sending each other gag gifts. I mean, I want to know how much that goes down, because, I've got to believe that somebody's poking Tobias's bubble. Because otherwise, what might happen to him? He might become, I don't know, one of the technorati.
I've actually, the truth is, I've never actually met him. Listen, I think he's brilliant in what he's been able to do. And
I can set up a cage match, dude. I can set up a cage match.
I wanted to meet him. It was always sort of this weird things, as I got deeper into that ecosystem, then obviously COVID happened and Shopify at the time kind of ended up shutting down offices like a lot of other people did, and they went more remote. I've actually never met the man. I obviously have a great deal of respect and admiration for him. I think he's a visionary, and I think, listen, he sets an amazing tone and tempo to that business. I would say the same thing for Harley in different reasons. I have met Harley. I think he is as far as an investor relations perspective and a pitch man for the company, he's an absolute gold standard. Like, the guy is just, he is amazingly charismatic and energetic, and he is like a bundle of authentic energy. And, wherever I had a chance to take advantage of that in that ecosystem, I certainly look to do so. I've got other friends over there. Bobby and I were close. We still, we'll text back and forth from time to time. Certainly if I saw anybody in person, we would go, give each other a hug or whatnot. But yeah, I don't have the bandwidth, honestly, to go do those sorts of things. I do talk with a lot of other people in the space across other platforms, probably more so than I do the shop folks. But like with my friends and things there, like, I don't want to put them in a weird spot either of we can talk personally and catch up and things like that, but I just don't think it's fair of me to go, like, even indirectly, they've got great gigs where they are there. I don't want them to intentionally or unintentionally feel like there's some sort of conflict of interest. So I wish them well personally, but again, competing head to head, I very much would like to kick their ass.
God, you're such a CEO. I mean, you're towing the line, but what it comes back to is you got a reputation, man, for being one of the most authentic and grounded leaders out there in technology. And, I felt it the minute, I met you at NRF. I was like, this guy is not a stiff. And that's me.
Oh, that's good to know.
Well, hey, when you've spent 25 years recruiting sales professionals, if there's one thing they sniff out and run from, it's the geek CEO who has to control everything. And you are like the opposite of that. It's like, hey man, what's your bag? What do you do? All right. Terrific. That's great. How can I help you? I love that energy. I love that feel. And I want to know, what do you think shaped that for you?
Listen, I've never had like, an official mentor in business, right? It's not like I worked for somebody where I was like, oh, geez, he or she took me under their wing. And there's a lot about them that I have worked with and for many people in my career that I have a deep appreciation for, starting out of school and obviously continuing on, some of which I'm still, like Barry Clark, who I never worked for, but whether he recognizes it or not, he's been an unbelievable mentor to me, whether he's tried to or not. He ran global sales at ATG and then led sales there on the retail side in the RGBU for several years at Oracle before he's gone on to do some other things. So I've had folks like that in my life that have left a big impression. I think the consistency across all of them of what I've appreciated most is their own authenticity. And, I don't even think I have the skill set to pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm just too demonstrative. I'm not an insular person where I keep things inside, and it just eats away. I think I'd be a terrible spy probably and a terrible poker player. I think you would know exactly where I stand. And I think, one of the things I realized early on in my career is, obviously people starting out on the sales and the revenue side, people buy from people. And I think people buy from people that they trust and like, and you don't need to be a shapeshifter. I think it's just be you. And as long as it's you, it's just like swinging a golf club. There's not one correct way to do it. You could swing it 1,000 different ways and hit it consistently down the middle every time. Who am I to say that my way of swinging the golf club, metaphorically speaking, is the right way? It's right for who I am and what my skill set is. And just like I'm not a script oriented person, like if someone put a script in front of me and said, I want you to give this speech verbatim on what's been written, especially if someone else wrote it, I'm going to fail miserably. Like I am an improv, like shoot, not from the hip. I'm certainly educated on what I'm talking about, but like that is my strength. I know scripting and trying to pretend to be something maybe that I'm not, either better or worse. isn't me. And I think I've picked that up along the years from people that I've worked with, worked for, that have worked for me. I've been able to, plagiarize those characteristics, and it just reinforced my own approach. I try to lead the way I would want to be led. I try to manage the way that I would want to be managed. And it's led me to strategies and hiring practices that play to those strengths, right? And avoid my own sort of shortcomings and weaknesses, of which we all have, and some of which are insurmountable. Like they're just, you're just not going to change. You get to be our age, at least within the same decade, as you alluded to earlier. Like I am who I am.
I got a little on you, but you're not.
Yeah,
thanks.
that's okay. That's all right.
Appreciate that.
I could always dye my hair. I guess I could come back as a blonde or something.
Well, you have hair to dye, so I mean that's a whole different subject.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But that's the long and short of it. I mean, there's nothing like there's no framework or methodology that I followed around it. I do have a good sense for people and talent, and I've been able to, lucky enough, quite frankly, just being the oldest of three boys. I didn't have an older brother or anything. I've been fortunate enough to have folks older in their careers, whether they're peers or superiors or however many layers up. I've been fortunate enough in my career to surround myself with some of those folks and really learn from them, whether they knew I was learning from them or not. Who knows? But that's something that I have been deliberate about, although it's not been planned. I'm not like some sort of weirdo. I just enjoy spending time with people that I can learn from and evolve from, whether we have the same style or not. Even learning like what their style is and how it differs from mine is beneficial. So,
well, you mentioned plagiarizing, and I feel like a lot of folks do that. I mean, I plagiarized my entire career, and ChatGPT has just made it so much easier to do that. And I really mean, hats off to the folks, at Anthropic and OpenAI for making that easier for all of us to essentially claim somebody else's words as our own. But clearly you're not completely comfortable with that, which is good. I have to laud that. But going back to, you're sitting in the CEO chair, you're in a big company. Typically boards are looking for somebody who's pedigreed.
Yeah.
This is coming from the headhunter who's always been very suspicious of companies say, well, I want somebody coming out of this company. And that's one of the things kind of turns my stomach about what's going on with Meta rating all of these other firms with $100 million signing bonuses to geek out and, build Zook's monster, whatever it's going to be in the virtual world, hunting us all. What do you think of, this preconception that's out there in particularly the software community, that it's better if somebody, it's easier to hire somebody if they come out of this big name, if they come out of Oracle, or if they come out of Salesforce, or, does that background really prepare somebody for anything in software?
I can only speak from my experience. I think, listen, I've said this again before, and I'll say it again. I give a lot of credit to my predecessor, Brent, who certainly looked at, however many candidates they looked at, I don't know, but certainly looked at folks coming out of that background, and maybe in the past had hired folks coming out of that background. And I don't think I was the obvious choice, quite frankly, when I was recruited for the role, and it was, in an earn out over at Accenture. I didn't honestly expect to get the job. Not because I didn't think I'd do a great job, and not that I wasn't enthusiastically excited about it. You're balancing that like everybody does when you're in a role and running whatever it is anyone's running. And you're it is a weird mental state, like younger people that end up taking a job and then getting recruited. And it feels like this weird, I'm secretly taking calls and meetings, and I feel like I'm cheating in some way. And you get over that as you get older, obviously. But I didn't think, for exactly that reason, on paper, despite having accomplished, in my opinion, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish, but I wouldn't say it maps exactly to what the use case is here, or what people traditionally would have expected in the role in a software company that's in a bit of a turnaround in a public market. That being said, I do think the market has shifted a ton. I think it's been massively disrupted. I think it's continuing to be disrupted by AI and agentic and a bunch of other things. And quite frankly, I do think it favors not only the experienced, I think it favors folks with a services background. And you're starting to see that trend more and more where services folks are coming out of services and landing in software. And I think it's for a reason. I think services folks are tend to be business outcome oriented. They tend to look at things holistically. They tend to understand all the other ancillary things that go into and complement such software to actually bring it to life. And I think it's just a different mentality. So I think that's an advantage. On paper, I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to Harvard or an Ivy League school.
Thank God.
And, I've gotten some compliments privately and publicly where people are appreciative that I don't act like I have. At first, I don't know if that was an insult or a backhanded compliment, but listen, I am who I am. I'm not going to change. And if people like that, great. And if they don't, okay. I'll appreciate feedback if it's constructive. If it's insulting, maybe I'll laugh at myself for a minute, but it's just it is what it is. I can't go back in time and change any of those things. It's just, I'm going to do my thing. And I think, listen, I've taken a hiring approach as well. I think a lot of other people have too, realizing that college is very expensive. I think it's a gate for people of a certain lifestyle and household income, and not to get political or things like that. I don't know how valued it is now versus 30 years ago. Presumably it's valued less. Depends on what you do, depends on what you go into. I don't want to take anything away because it takes a shitload of work to get into a really good school for people and test and things like that. So I don't want to diminish the benefit of it. But I think for where this business was, for what it needed at the time and the role that I was hired into, I don't think, my education 30 years ago would have made a damn bit of difference. I think it was practical experience and acumen and mindset to want to come in and take on what needed to be come on and taking on. And a lot of that is around the transformation, which isn't for everyone. In fact, it's for very few realistically. And that doesn't make me special. Maybe it makes me masochistic. It's just a different gig than coming into a mature oiled machine and expanding on that machine. That is not what this was. And that is what attracted me. And I think it's what maps to my skill set. So that's my long-winded answer on my pedigree or lack thereof.
Well, you bring up a really interesting point, that you didn't feel you got over feeling bad, like you're cheating on your girlfriend when you were interviewing.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for individuals at that C level to really, they need to learn that, because you become an asset to the industry. Your knowledge set, your experience, it is special, that cumulative capability that you have. And if it's not being fully utilized, it's being wasted. And you have a responsibility at this point, because you know how to do stuff, to actually put yourself out there and to make sure that if there's some place where you could be more fully utilized, you're doing that. And, I appreciate that, you may not have gone to some Ivy League school, and we're not going to poop on education right now. But in this day and age, we've found more and more that there's so much learning opportunities that take place outside of traditional routes. And it's great to hear you in a leadership position are recognizing that. And it's about the qualitative nature of the individual. And I'm not going to stick too many more words in your mouth, because I don't want to blow out a cheek or anything, but that's good to hear from you. But you inherited a $350 million business at BigCommerce. You say it's in a turnaround. What was broken, and what have you rebuilt? And where are you staring? What are you staring at to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the go-to-market certainly was broken. I think that was probably the most visibly obvious to everyone in the space. And I think, maybe an over-indexed good thing over the years of coming out of SMB and falling into this trap of trying to be everything to everyone. And that's hard. It's hard in a public market to do that and distinguish yourself in market. I think you had two acquired assets and MakeSwift and Feedonomics that had not yet been integrated into the business. I felt like they were a critical part of the story and the narrative, as well as kind of where I felt like the market was going as well. And, they serve different markets, certainly, and different capabilities. But I think, there was a better together story there, most certainly, that was opportunistic. To your point, inheriting a $350 million business is I had nothing to do with building that business. I think very fortuitous that I was able to take that over. That helps a ton. And not that the company didn't have warts. Of course it did. Every company does. But I felt like it was a manageable array of warts that could be, frozen off or what have you. I knew the company needed some changes. I've done this before. I've done it under different circumstances. I would say in this capacity, it's been easier in some ways. Brent was very supportive of me coming in, and I was able to bring on new folks very, very quickly. I've not always had that in the past. I've worked for folks in the past under similar circumstances that I wasn't as aligned with, and they were a bit more of a challenge. I didn't have that here. I certainly, wasn't expecting to be put in a chair 5 months after starting. That happened, and that transition in the board and everyone else has been very supportive, as well as Brent. So that's seamless. That transition was seamless. And I think for us, integrating the products, focusing on our ICPs, being more deliberate about who it is that we're for and why, articulating in a way that is not only authentic, but differentiating. And then I think, we're about to go through a parent rebrand here shortly. We've got earnings coming up in a week and a half where I'll be able to share more. But I think all of this coming together at the same time, given where the market is going and where the demand is right now, I think there is a lot of tangible goodness that will become more clear in a few weeks after earnings of what it is we've been doing, why it is we've been doing it. We've been kind of deliberately non-hand wavy, despite the rest of the industry, which tends to be, in certain cases, we won't name names, very hand wavy. Making commerce great again for everybody, I understand, but we haven't had a lot to wave, honestly. Like, the business has been, I don't want to say pedestrian. I think we've done a really nice job inside the four walls. A lot of amazing work and transformations gone on that hasn't necessarily been reflected in the numbers as yet. And we've guided to that the first half of this year was going to be sluggish. We've got some stuff to work through and reorganize. It's tough to do that in a public market. And I think as we come out now in H2, we're now kind of getting in execution mode and executing against that strategy. And the hope, to use a sports analogy, would be, play a little bit more offense than defense. And I know most of us internally have been part of this, have been chomping at the bit to get to that stage. So that's where we're at. I think, certainly not immune to past challenges and issues in markets. Certainly has hit everybody with all the macroeconomic volatility. But I feel really good about where we are and where we're going. And I wouldn't take back a thing, honestly, in what we've been able to do. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been pretty damn good.
Well, composability as a whole hasn't been perfect. I mean, I've been a fan from the beginning. Just the idea of being able to interchange components to build your best version of yourself. What's the store you always wanted? How did you want people to, look at that Birkin bag and hold it like the jewel it is, and eventually buy it for $100 million and, never wear it again, never use it again. I love that, but it's hard to explain to folks. You've got, I think BigCommerce has done a much better job of making the pieces bite-sized so that the pedestrian business leaders out there and the IRC 500 and beyond and Global 2000 can go, oh, that's how it works. Oh, I didn't understand. It's like they've been snowed under by, Salesforce Commerce saying, that's going to kill you. It's like, no, it's not. This is not heart surgery. This is not heart surgery. Okay. We can rebuild you, Steve. Better. I mean, your store just went through, it's like the HL10 video from the $6 Million Man. It's like, we can't hold it. Just cry. It's like the stores are crashing out there. I mean, I just read yesterday that Shopify experienced the greatest exodus of customers over the last 4 years in the last 2 months. And it's because these marketers and these e-commerce store leaders are like, I really am not that differentiated. And this really isn't exactly how we work. And we want to do things differently. And you need a more flexible platform. But you've said it yourself, composability isn't for everybody. What do you think BigCommerce's unique take on composability? Who is it for?
Well, I mean, listen, I've described this as a different religion than maybe a monolith approach, not a different denomination of Christianity or whatnot. We're not like wearing different types of clothes and maybe, dancing and standing up versus sitting down and kneeling.
I'm going to put on some tunes. Okay. Just because.
I think it is a different approach. And like I said, I'm not professing it needs to be for everyone. I think the downside to the approach historically has been it's been expensive and complicated. And for it to work at scale needs to be commercially, technically, and operationally easier and feasible and consumable, digestible. So a lot of what we've been doing is again, it's not hand wavy, call it curated composability or pre-composed, or everyone's got their own vernacular for it. Like for us, I think most companies haven't been in the space for a long time, view themselves as peers to people in other like type industries or sub industries. And I think they expect what feels like bespoke, specialized capabilities for their specific industry or sub industry. And they expect that at speed and at scale. And I think for us, we do really well in specific industries. They tend to be innately more complicated than maybe your traditional, fashion, apparel, and accessory sort of spaces. And, I think we're leaning into that a bit more. Obviously, B2B is a whole nother animal that I think plays to the capabilities of the business and on the platform side, certainly our own capabilities against the competitive landscape. But I think we've done a lousy job historically of articulating that to market and what it actually means and the benefits of such back to consumers. And again, we've had some success there year to date. I think we're looking forward to amplifying the actual stories of folks going live and reaping the benefits and things like that. But I think in this new world order of agentic, first of all, I think data, in many capacities is the new storefront. I think we've got some innate advantages there that may be obvious to some, maybe not as obvious to others. And I think on the platform side, composability is going to be king. I think people want optionality.
Hallelujah.
They don't want to be painted into a corner. It doesn't mean, that's everybody. Like whatever, you do you. My perspective and my lens, if I was sitting at a brand, regardless of who it is, I would like optionality. I would love organizational agility. And I've said this from the moment I stepped in the door here, coming out of services, brands, regardless of size, organizations, regardless of size and industry, need to go where their customers want to engage them. That is fundamentally changing now. All the proliferation of channels and all these channels we have now that we never had before. Now you have all the answer engine channels, which is sucking in all the traffic. And to optimize for that is very different than what we've optimized in the past. Brands are figuring out how to get there with relevance, be discoverable, play a role in what that shopping experience may ultimately be, and where it evolves, who knows? But I think I like, as I said, why I took this gig. I like openness. I like composability. I like optionality, and I like data. I don't need to be the super target. I don't need to be everything to everyone. And I don't think most folks, certainly up market, want all of that in one. Now, commercially, they may want it easier as one, and we're doing some creative things
wants
around
one contract.
Yeah,
they want
exactly.
One throat to choke, but
they do.
They're not. They have to be brought along in that journey. It's like, look, we're actually putting control in the hands of your department heads, so they have more ability to innovate and respond and change. It's like, how do you calculate the ROI on that? How do you calculate that?
Well, that's the funny thing now. I mean, I read all this stuff about like TCO and ROI calculators and all this other stuff. It's sort of like, by definition, if you've got to go subscribe to whatever, pick your poison, you got to go subscribe to 6 to 12 third-party apps to extend a platform to appease your use cases. first of all, I can tell you as an agency guy, you don't know what those apps are when you sell the deal. You've got to get deep into paid discovery and extrapolate use cases and requirements before you can make a call there. And by the way, these apps are not like plug and play. You've got to extend. Oftentimes you've got to customize them. There's a cost of doing so. There's a cost of licensing. You may outgrow that app in a short period of time. You got to make sure that it doesn't, deprecate performance and other things. So there is a lot of, variables and moving pieces and parts here that is almost impossible to quantify in that model. To sit there and say, I've got an ROI or a TCO calculator you can just plug a bunch of shit into online, it's going to spit out the savings, is just complete bullshit nonsense. Like, I don't care who the platform is. And if we're doing it, shame on us too. I don't think it's an accurate output. I don't believe we are doing it, but I say that somewhat tongue in cheek. But I think composability also gives an advantage to not having to do everything at once either. And it allows incremental transformation that ultimately not only mitigates risk, but it also can facilitate transformation and efficacy without painting someone into a corner. Again, I'm not saying it's for everyone. I do think it's for a lot. I just don't think the market, including us and many others, have made it consumable enough, digestible enough at scale where it's a no-brainer. I believe this is easy while also mitigating risk, because hard in this market doesn't play for anyone. Like, no one has the risk tolerance to do something hard or something that could get them fired. Like, because there's a massive overrun or it takes 3 years to do whatever it is we're trying to do. There's no patience or runway for that anymore either. So for us, yes, we're obviously all in on composability. We have been for a long time. We are actively operating in a way to make that easier, faster, cheaper, more risk mitigated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see different bits and pieces of that in market as the rest of the year rolls out.
Well, I mean, I love following Serge Ostapenko. I think he's a great, talk about another big personality in the industry, and his agency, Mira, and they've done magnificent work with BigCommerce, and they talk about how they've made it bite-sized to move off of. Take your pick: ATG, Salesforce, Commerce, Shopify, whatever, and the control that they posited into the hands of the entire leadership team at the brands as they've done so, and that journey. And I think, going back to your earlier point about seeing how many more services people are making it into the software side of the equation, I think it's that journey, man. I think you guys are better Sherpas. I think because you're on the delivery end. You're on the delivery end. It's like
we've lived with this, yeah.
You've lived with it. It's like if the guy dies like 100 feet from the summit, it's like, well, shit. We blew it, and that's that relationship's over, and we're never going to get a referral from him for sure. I'm not good at writing these letters, so I mean, I think the services experience is so critical in the age of composability, because it's also understanding how does this company, what is their mission, what are they really about, and what technology is going to best facilitate them becoming the best version of themselves. And that's what I love about Composable, is that it doesn't put any limitations. It doesn't say, nope, this is what your business catalog is going to look like. And this is your PIM. And you're only going to have this much data available for these agents. And the agents are going to eat advertising. They're going to eat SEO first. That's the first thing they're going to do, which I'm not going to shed a tear for Amazon. I am not. They've been a magnificent retailer, but I am not going to shed a tear for them. Yeah. That experience is so one-dimensional. It's like, oh my gosh, for a nation of shoppers that we've settled for that crap for this long, awe-inspiring. All because they've got trucks. Come on. I think that your point that making that data accessible for those agents, as those agents become more sophisticated, because businesses, we're just at the beginning of individuals educating their personal agents on, this is the kind of shoe I like. I don't wear socks. If I do, I like them not to match. I'm probably sharing too much.
Is that like a Punky Brewster thing? You got the mismatching socks, or what's the deal?
I'm really cultivating weird I'm really
It's
just
okay.
cultivating it. I want to be the weird guy, and observe people being weirded out. But I think that it's really important to recognize that we're starting to see companies that are raising money and getting money for building these agents for businesses. It's like,
Yeah.
to figure out what is, and it's going to revolutionize everything, not just the procurement network, and the extended buy chain and the extended supply chain and the visibility and contract management, everything. It's all going to be an agent. But unless you've got a great platform that's consumed the data, organized the data, managing the data as efficiently as possible, as accessibly as possible, so that it's a value add to those agents, it's going to be gone. I don't think it's going to be in 5 years. I don't think it's going to be that fast. I think it's going to be slower. I mean, I talk to Chatty every day, my Chat GPT agent.
Yeah.
And she's wonderful, but she's got her limitations. I'm not scared. Another thing that you said that I really like is you've got a product philosophy.
Yeah.
Where you can be the target with produce, the farmer's market, or something else entirely.
Yeah.
In the commerce ecosystem. What do you want to be? What does BigCommerce want to be?
Yeah, I think the analogy, it's funny. You talk to investors and others, and you're trying to articulate the difference between, composability and maybe monolithic and other approaches. And I like to use analogies because I just think it's easier for people to understand. I would describe a monolithic approach as more of a super target, where, again, I think anyone who's been to super target appreciates the benefits of super target and the convenience of being able to go in and, you're going in for 5 things, and sure as shit, you're buying 15 coming out, maybe more. And that's the brilliance of target, and making you realize you need things that maybe you don't need until you've left, and you're like, gosh, I was just going in for, toothpaste and something else. And also you can buy, obviously food there and produce. And my argument and analogy I use all the time is, I don't think people go to Super Target to buy produce if they're really into produce. I think they buy produce there by proxy because they're already there and it's convenient, and they've got kids and a life and they're tired and whatever. They're not doing it because they have a passion for produce and that's an essential part of their diet. They buy it because it's convenient and easy. And my argument is, I think most people that are into produce and value it want to go to a farmer's market. They want to know where the stuff is sourced. They want to make sure it's grown organically. They want stuff that, tastes real and is nutritious and probably doesn't last 5 days once you bring it home. Our job with composability is to kind of give you the best of both worlds, where things are meant to be together and have harmony and synergy. Great, by all means, but we need to make the ability to go acquire that farmer's market produce at scale for a reasonable amount of effort and cost, right? It can't be 40 miles outside of town. It can't be 3x the price. And I think, maybe people get the analogy, maybe they don't. I think most organizations want best in class, and they want optionality, and they also appreciate the fact that the market moves so quickly. What's best in class today isn't necessarily best in class tomorrow, depending on shifts in their own business, shifts in the market, and things like that. So I think for us, we're trying to get everything to a standard where we're not building a walled garden. We're not in business with people because they feel, like they're held hostage and there's some sort of Stockholm syndrome. I want people to use us because they believe we're the best solution for them, regardless of product. And I think they also appreciate the optionality of building things to standard, or at least attempting to, in a way that gives people an environment to consume things best in class at scale that isn't, overly expensive or exhaustive. And I think that's philosophically what we're trying to kind of follow. I do think, to your point earlier, data is going to be king. And I think, data is going to drive a lot of these things. So I do think, having a collection of capabilities here with Feedonomics, especially on the data side, I think gives us a unique differentiation just organically out of the box. And we happen to also do that way up market. across, 30% of the IR 1000, which is an added bonus. And I think it also plays philosophically into what we're doing with both BigCommerce as a platform and MakeSwift. Doesn't mean all three need to be combined. Feedonomics is agnostic to platform. We have many, 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 many clients on Feedonomics that don't run BigCommerce as a platform. That's not going to change. Now, if we can make it more formidable for them to go together, and that makes sense for certain ICPs and certain clients, by all means, we would love to provide that increase in wallet share. But the intention of Feedonomics was never to be for just BigCommerce. It's always going to be agnostic because, again, brands want optionality. For many brands, running Salesforce Commerce Cloud is best for that brand. Like people like, oh, Salesforce is terrible. Adobe's horrible. They're like, say what you want. There's plenty of people still running Salesforce Commerce Cloud and plenty of people still running Adobe that love those platforms. Like, I don't say anything disparaging about those platforms because I think they're the right platforms for their own cohorts. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but there's a reason people are still using them. There's a reason still people use ATG that's been sunset for, over a decade. Maybe they're good reasons, maybe they're bad reasons, but like
Hybris
for us
to join it in a matter of months.
Yeah, I mean, they're still, listen, I don't see them in market very often, but they still have a very rich install base, especially upmarket B2B. It's still a very formidable, product. And is it for everyone? No. Or is there a subset of their install base that probably wants to leave? Yeah, of course. Okay, that doesn't make it a shit product per se. It just makes it the wrong product for where that business is and where that business is going. And if that happens to map to what we are providing and we can do, fantastic. We're all over that. But that doesn't mean we are for every single Hybris install. I think that is an arrogant and irresponsible thing to say. I don't think anyone's building a product like that is the best for everyone. It's impossible. Like there is no way, shape, or form where that is feasible in the market, in my perspective. And it's why I also like composable. I think more disruption will come by way of ISV than the platform companies per se. Yeah. And I want to be able to ingest that disruption and that innovation very quickly and at scale versus getting into this weird arms race with Shop and everybody else that we're going to build the next best flux capacitor and you've got to buy it. I think those days are long behind us. So anyway, that I'm not saying it's right for who we are and where we're going. I'm not saying it's right for everybody else. Hopefully that explains it. But yeah, that's kind of what we've been focused on.
Well, it goes back to authenticity. You do have to accommodate what's right for the customer. What is the optimal platform for them? And, yes, they may have an ancient platform that requires leagues of ISVs to come in there and update or change or do anything to. And they may be incredibly paranoid of making any changes in that because we're talking about tens of millions of dollars and careers are wrapped up in that monstrosity that's sitting in the basement. Taped together with duct tape, spit, a little bit of bubble gum, some hope, a little dream catcher in the corner. It's like, and snoozing away is the Teradata database also in the back there. But one of the things I love about Composable is the fact that you have such a empowered ISV community. You have so many service vendors that are fabulous, that are just, I think BigCommerce has done an amazing job of just building such an incredibly complex, specialized network of ISVs that do one thing, and it's okay. It's okay. You can only focus on platform, or you can only focus on, product info, or you can only focus on data. And BigCommerce is like, sure, you don't have to sell everything. That's great. We'll provide you a revenue recognition model that works for you, which is wonderful, which is why your partners love you. And that's why you got guys like Sergey, who would drop you in a heartbeat if you weren't producing a quality product that was really bulletproof and he could put out there and say, look at what we did. He would.
That guy's amazing. I would like to think there's more unconditional love there from Sergey because he has been, one of our biggest advocates in market, is not afraid to speak his mind. The guy is a brilliant guy in his own right. And he sends me notes, very direct notes, honestly. And these are not fluffy things like you're doing an amazing job. it's almost as if he works here. I mean, he has
He's
authentic passion as a partner for this business, and I appreciate the input, and I deeply, deeply respect his opinion. And I'm not alone. Many other people have, and clients, and it's why he does what he does and does it well. I think that is an advantage coming from services. Is I can empathize with not only the business outcome orientation, but obviously the partners and what they go through to actually implement the product, and what's incentivizing for them, right? They need to make money and be able to keep butts in seats and things like that. And I think, a lot of software companies don't necessarily have that perspective. They're just, they're slinging software and don't necessarily have a great appreciation for the amount of work and risk that goes into delivering it, especially way up market. I mean, I don't think I've ever delivered a Hybris project on time or on budget in my career. Very few ATG projects and lots of give backs and skin knees, and it'll put a lot of gray hair on your head or strip you of your hair. It's hard. You got a beautiful head, by the way.
Thank you so much.
It's a good sheen. It's a consistent sheen coming up, which is nice.
Yeah. I buffed it. For the meeting. It's great. Just a light paste, a light carnauba wax.
Nice. Yeah, it looks a little muted, which is good, which is nice. It's a nice shimmy, but not over the top. You're not trying to draw attention to it. Which
I'm really not. I'm just trying to, kind of provide a stage for my background. That's really what I'm doing, to just demonstrate that I am a shopaholic. And all this stuff was acquired online. And my head is just kind of the transition. It's just kind of the transition zone. It's good. I appreciate that. Now, I look at, some of the partners that I talk to in the composable world, like Jason over at Orium, and, they've spent millions of dollars building an accelerator to make it easier for their customers to consume composable, to make it easier for them. And they darn well should have a seat at the table with the vendors and saying, look, we're going to install this, but people are going to have to use it. At the end of the day, the customers are going to have to be more enabled. And if we're not achieving that, it doesn't work. Well, this has been nice talking to you about business. Let's switch a little bit. I want to talk about, I want to talk more about the real deal, because this has just all been bullshit so far. So I want to talk about Travis. I want to talk about Travis. You've been through a couple of economic cycles now, and most of the up and coming vendors that I see out there in software, they haven't. They've only been in kind of this economy of plenty. And do you have any concerns about today's latest generation of tech leaders?
Well, I mean, listen, I think I've said this a few times publicly too. I think if you're 35-ish or so or younger, you probably have not experienced an economic downturn in at least your professional career. Just going back, if you do the math, I run out of fingers and toes, but if you go back to 08 and the last crisis, which was a pretty big one, those of us that are old enough that have been through those sorts of things, I experienced the late 90s bubble and the burst, and around that time, I experienced Y2K, an analogy I use a lot, and half the room looks at me like I have three heads. But listen, we've all been through this. We know the kind of the ups and downs of the macroeconomic swings, and then also, on the services side, the ups and downs, the cyclical trend of insourcing versus outsourcing sort of thing, which seems to come around and change every 4 or 5 years. So I've seen a lot of it. I think the biggest disadvantage of younger people in the space, to your point, I think they've grown up with everything just kind of like that Price is Right, game where the guy just keeps kind of going up and up and up and up and up, and eventually he, hopefully doesn't fall off the cliff. But the way we sell things now and in the last 5-6 years in the space is very different than how they were sold and scoped years prior, and I think that is a massive disadvantage for younger people, because everything moves so quickly now. The tech has gotten so good. I can't tell you how many times, look at COVID. People were buying stuff virtually. Like that never would have happened back in the day, the trust and just the interactions cross-functionally amongst these groups. Because if you went into a brand manufacturer or retailer to go, in my days of scope in ATG as an example, that's probably a 3-day on-site workshop gratis with myself, maybe 2 or 3 other senior folks from the business, and literally running cross-functional workshops, soup to nuts, where we might spend half a day with a customer service group and understand like not only the technology that they're running, but the use cases, the requirements, the integrations, like the human capital element of this, like what the enablement path would be if we put you on this new tool. How would we train and enable you to make sure you could still do your job without, a lack of customer experience or a fall in any sort of expectations. Same thing goes for supply chain and front office and merchandising and marketing and everybody else. Those sessions, each one of those is like a business school class in a jar, and win, lose, or draw the deal. You learned a ton from those experiences and what the heartburn was, what the pains were from these clients, whether they were coming out and sharing it with you or not. You were learning it organically because you needed to extrapolate it to actually scope the deal and put forth a proposal. So not only were you extrapolating it, you've got the human consulting interaction of working cross-functionally. And then as you do it more and more and more, you're obviously applying it organically to the next one and the next one and the next one. And you start in your own head deciphering trends within specific industries or industry sizes or what have you. And you wake up and all of a sudden you're a freaking consultant. That being said, you're also backing that in and chapter and versing a proposal that isn't just a allocation of staffing, it's the actual solution and the approach you're going to take by which the organization to digest such solution. That shit doesn't happen really that much anymore. Certainly in the world of SaaS, and certainly like, the shops and the BigCommerces and others, like it's a much faster sale where you're getting a fraction of that information. It's a much simpler process, if you will. And as a result, you've got younger people that didn't get to skin their knees maybe the same way that I and many others were able to. So it's hard to contextualize the disadvantage there. So I think that's the biggest challenge younger folks have, is they just never got a chance, certainly smart enough to have evolved no differently than I have or others. They just haven't had the at-bats and the medium by which to get that sort of exposure. And whether they recognize it or not, I think they're at an innate disadvantage as well. And then I'll stop babbling. But I think the other aspect over the last 5 or 6 years, the primary focus has been around the front end. And the front end has always been like the most straightforward side of this business, in my opinion. Others may disagree on the content and experience management side. I would argue nobody ever worried about the front end. Just make it look like the comps, dude. Like, come on, let's stop this bullshit. I worry about the back end. I worry about integrations. I worry about data. I worry about security. I worry about stuff that goes bump in the night. I worry about order orchestration and management and reconciliation, fulfillment, call center, and all this shit that is very, very hard and very complicated. That, as we move into agentic, and this is going to come up more and more and more. I've talked about this openly. Order orchestration, inventory availability, proliferation of channels, data integrity, trust, all these things. This is going to serve up wildly complicated use cases that the simple have not had to deal with ever. And again, I would say advantage to the experienced over the inexperienced, and advantage to the open versus the closed, because this is going to get like funky Cole Medina really quickly. It already is. And I think, listen, it's a fascinating time to be in the space. It's the most interesting thing that's happened to it in a long time. I saw a lot of this coming in many ways. Certainly not all the ways, because it changes every week. But I think having spent time at Accenture and a lot of bright, capable people and big clients there, you started seeing early signs of this a couple of years ago, of kind of where this is going in many ways, people trying to prepare for it. And I think, listen, we'll see where it all shakes out. But I think it's a fascinating time. I do think it's going to be a lot of, there'll be front end stuff, certainly, but there's a lot of data and a lot of back office that needs to be reconciled, which is going to come front and center, that really hasn't been front and center for a long time, quite frankly. It's just been one of the underappreciated elements of this.
Well, I mean, I think we're talking about the proliferation of so many order management systems. As a result of this, it's like, oh, we need to be able to serve this channel. How do we do that? And it needs we need to be able to show it where all our stuff is and how long it's going to be and how much it costs and all that. Like, okay, how many OMSs really do that well? Only a couple. Yeah. Only a couple. And if you don't have one, you gotta get one. You're not going to be able to build that functionality. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's take a beat here. Now, when you were growing up in Connecticut, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Ooh. Well, to be candid, I think I initially wanted to be an architect, and I don't know if that was like a Mike Brady thing from the Brady Bunch. And then I took a drafting class in high school, and I realized like the precision and level of detail required in drafting. I was like, I don't think this is for me. And I became fascinated with advertising. I think 30 something was on at the time, give or take.
Yes.
It wasn't like watching it. And at the time I was like, holy shit, 30 is like really old. And here I am, obviously older than 30, and realizing, geez, that's really young. What it would be like to be 30 again.
I'm not as mature as most 30-year-olds, but I'm
no. Emotionally, I'm probably stuck at 27. But yeah. I think that I think I had, you had kind of the Chiat Day, Apple sort of days in college. I basically interned every summer at a different advertising agency in New York, across different departments. Like I was just fascinated with the entire industry. I used to go to the library and research the old advertising red book, which was about a book like this thick that listed every agency in the world, all their billings, all their clients, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's spring break, prior to spring break, I would go photocopy sheets out of that red book. I would come back to my word processor in my, my dorm room or apartment, wherever I was living at the time. I would write letters to agencies in HR looking for summer internships.
What are those?
Word processors or letters?
Letters.
Yeah, I used to lick a stamp and put back when stamps were 25 cents or whatever they were. Now I don't even know what they are. I just have a bunch of forever ones I've never used.
What a filthy habit we had. It was just
it was terrible. But I, like, my friends were going down to Panama City and wherever else they were partying for spring break. That was never really my thing. I went back to Connecticut. I'd set up internship interviews. I would go into the city. I would interview and lock down an internship for the summer. And I did that every single summer because I really wanted to be in and around advertising. I appreciated the creativity, which I always had a creative side to my personality and just what I enjoyed and sort of an outlet for me. And it combined with business. And I like the theater of it. I like the storytelling nature of it, which has prepared me for what I do now, which is basically telling the same, story around a dinner table over and over and over again, which is part of the job. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, holy shit, how many more times can people listen to this? And then you realize, oh, they haven't heard it before. So maybe it's, except for the people that are maybe with me, they're probably thinking like, good Lord, can you just shut up and stop saying the same story and the same joke? But that was my shtick. I really want to be in advertising, really want to be a copywriter. I was able to write and do things like that. And then that just evolved over time into biz dev in the space. And as a pitch guy back in the day, even though there was PowerPoint, it was used less so, it was more storyboards, and just at a very early age got a vibe and an acumen to telling stories. People would ask me, like, how do you prepare for these things? And I would have a story in my head independent of slides, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I would assume the power would go out in every pitch, and you would have to tell the story, and you'd have to understand the spirit of the story. And that might be slightly different every time because you're riffing. But to me, that's what worked well for me and the way that I present, the way that I talk. And I've just, whereas other people are like massively scripted. They've got notes and they're memorizing it. They've got stuff in the speaker notes and PowerPoint. I still don't know how people use any of that shit. How do you look at the speaker notes when you're actually presenting to a crowd? Because the slides aren't for you. They're for the audience. So like, to me, the best slide presentation is one with no words. Like they would just be images and you're just telling a story. And again, I'm using like an intro pitch as an example, not as you get into the details, but that was my spick. Wanted to go into advertising. That evolved over the years. And 20 years or so ago, I found myself in commerce almost accidentally.
Well, I'm disappointed that you didn't want to pitch for the Red Sox, but that's fine.
I was a Yankee fan. Red Sox. God, come on. Terrible.
Yeah, that's about all we have time for today, Travis. Thanks thanks for showing up.
Oh,
Jesus,
no.
You had to bring that up. God
No, I
damn.
can't. No, Patriots, Red
All
Sox.
right, fine.
Hard no.
I'll start building the pyre to burn you on here in a couple of minutes. But
I'm a
until
Dolphins
then,
fan, man. Come on, you can't. I mean,
you gotta love
jeez.
Dan. Dan Marino.
Oh,
love the man.
The best.
Love the man.
Had
love
3 posters of him in my room till like
he was just
5 years ago.
Wow, love the man. But you've been described by others as being a deep introvert who has to be on all the time. How do you recharge? I mean, are you lithium? Are you what?
Well, I mean, I when I was running BVA, we had like an IO psych lead, and they did like an analysis of personality types and things like that. I think technically I was diagnosed as an ambivert. I think that's what it's called. It's basically an extroverted introvert, meaning I have the ability to obviously act as if I'm an extrovert, where like people who don't know me well must think like, oh my gosh, that guy, must be crazy, energetic and extroverted on the weekends in my free time. And quite frankly, it's the opposite. It is exhausting. I enjoy it. It gives me energy, but it also saps my energy and I need to recharge. So I am, listen, I travel a lot for work. To me, that's very relaxing. Quite frankly, going to different places, being in different environments, learning from different people in those travels is amazing and something that I'm fortunate enough to do through work. I'm also a relentless homebody. There is an element of tranquility of being home and just putzing around and doing stuff around the house and not feeling this urge to go out and socialize all the time. And I jokingly say I'm best enjoyed in small doses, which is true.
So we're ODing now. This is just like we've had a surfeit. That's it. Somebody's gonna come up with some Narcan in a second here. It's like, oh
yeah,
my God.
it's all good. I mean, I think it's like, listen, I like being around. Listen, I think this job is great in the sense that it does require you to tell stories, and it does require you to be out in public and engage with people, which I find fascinating and I enjoy it. Like if I never got to do that, I'd be miserable. So like I need to do it. It does require it at scale, which again, I've learned how to balance that over the years. I think it's tough. My kids are older now. I to pretend that I was like amazing at balancing that when I was younger, I think would be irresponsible. It took me a while, and I say the same thing about my people management capability. I think most people think they're amazing people managers. I think most people are innately bad. I think you have to work at it. There are some that are amazing naturally, and I've been fortunate enough to surround myself with many of them. I don't think I am naturally a great people manager. I have to work at it. And even after working at it, I don't think that I'm amazing, which is fine. It is what it is. I cast certain types of skill sets around that because of my own maybe misgivings, but same thing, business wise. I think balancing work life and understanding like what is harmonious for you as a person is different for everybody. For me, it's taken me a while to get there. I think I'm at the point where I know my balancing, where I maintain a full battery when I'm working, and at the same time I carve out enough escape time to kind of to recharge. I don't know if that's modern recharging. I might be like old school like that. I'm just plugging myself into some weird looking contraption in the garage. I'm certainly not solar. I'm not like laying out in the sun and stuff and recharging.
You've just alienated most of the green base there in Austin. So I don't know if they're going to remove your parking or something, or show up in the front yard and say, Travis, you should convert to solar.
Yeah, I should.
A plug-in guy.
Sure.
Well, how do you keep? It's lonely at the top. As a CEO, you are in front of everybody all the time. How do you keep that from being isolating?
It is lonely. I think if you asked folks that have done this, I think they would say the same thing. It's just a result of the role. And I think, I've always been able to compartmentalize things. I think everyone deals with adversity in life. And I think I've learned more from, adversity than I have from success, certainly. And I think because of that, all through my life, like most people, I handle it, probably fairly well. I have a few close personal friends, certainly, that I like being around. Certainly, I can be myself. I don't need to think before I speak, and they know me, the good, bad, and the ugly, and presumably love me for it, regardless, as I do them. And certainly, I've got my kids, and I love animals. I've got 2 dogs that thankfully are not in the background right now, but
as mine is. But we'll edit that out.
Yeah, you just you learn to cope with it and understand that that's just part of the gig. And again, it's not for everyone. Maybe there's something to unpack, mentally from me as to why I'm drawn to it. But yeah, you compartmentalize it, you deal with it just like a lot of people do for different reasons. And you manage it more than anything. And you talk about it. Like I'm not an insular person. I've got no shame in talking about, my own bouts of loneliness or adversity or challenge or situational depression or, other things that have impacted my own life as they have many other people. And I find that to be the healthiest way, is to just talk it out. I'm not a yeller. I'll yell like in a positive way. Like I get passionate about things that is maybe misconstrued as, by my kids when I used to work from home at COVID. Like, why are you yelling at people all day? And they also realized when I worked from home at COVID, how much I swore, which I didn't realize could be heard through the rest of,
comes with not having house. Shame. I have no shame. And I really should. Shame was invented for people like me, but I've shunned shame, so I'm shameless.
That's good for you. I mean, I don't listen. I'm not at the age of like my parents where there's like no filter and they like can get away with it because they're like 81. But.
It's fun approaching it. It's fun approaching it.
God, it's
amazing.
Oh,
I love where we're going with this.
I would just love to say that out loud. I only say that stuff out loud when I'm in the car. I am an angry driver, but yeah,
in the restaurant.
Listen. I try to tell young people if they're interested and they ask me, like, listen, you just get to a stage in life where you just get comfortable with yourself, right? Of like your flaws, your adversity, your trauma, like all your shit. Like everybody has shit. Everybody is flawed. Every family's dysfunctional. Every human being is flawed. Like all this, like
deeply,
as a kid, you think you're the only one.
Some disconcertingly.
100%. It's like
in positions of authority, which is really disconcerting. It's even worse.
It really, it's like, I told my kids when they're younger, like life is complicated, man. It's just like, you don't understand it until you experience it yourself. And then you have that, aha moment, like, oh, that's why my parents said, because I said so. Like that was the ultimate, like, why do I have to do that? Because I said so. In like 1986, that flew, like no issues, no challenges. It's never flown in my house. Like I could never get away with saying shit like that. But yeah, you just get comfortable in your own skin. You get comfortable. I think that's the authenticity too. Like you just own it. Like, and I own my positives as well as my negatives. And I try to work on the stuff that I need to work on, that I can work on, and know that I'm never going to be perfect there either. Just give yourself a little grace, and like life is hard at times. And I think acknowledging that as opposed to being surprised by it, I've found most successful people, regardless of how you define success, it doesn't necessarily mean money. Lots of people are happy in different ways, are those that accept the fact that there's going to be adversity and challenges, and those that are able to push through them to the extent they're capable of faster than maybe others is really what has, in my opinion, and it's overly generalized because that's a much bigger subject that we could unpack politically, that I don't believe is the case. But I'm saying in business, like most people that have risen because bad shit's happened to them professionally, and they've been able to push through whatever that adversity is, getting fired, having, professional challenges, whatever the variables are. I think, have you been able to kind of push through that? Because I've experienced more than my fair share of dysfunction and adversity in my professional life. This has not been like this steady rise to becoming a CEO. If it was chutes and ladders, I've hit that big slide at the top more than once and ended up with my ass all the way down to the bottom again. I rarely have hit the big ladder. I never land on that.
I never did.
Ladder. Never landed on the ladder.
I never landed on the big ladder. I always looked at the big ladder and, gave that to that. My son was always hitting the big ladder. But, what would you tell a 30-something CEO that's got their first job as a CEO? What advice would you give that person?
Good advice to give a 30-something CEO. I think trust your leadership team, or if you don't trust your leadership team, create a leadership team that you do trust. Like I very much philosophically, I'm very into collaboration. I very much want to surround myself with people that complement my own skill set as I do theirs, and I really deeply appreciate and value their input. And I think it's a way more viable and powerful way to approach it. And that leadership team may be very small. It may be, much larger depending on the size of the organization. But to try to do it all yourself, I think is a fool's errand. I think that's really hard. It doesn't scale. It's very easy to have like this this very targeted perspective from your own viewpoint that blocks out really valuable input from other points of view. I love open debate. Best idea wins. If I have food in my teeth or a shitty idea, tell me I've got food in my teeth or a shitty idea. That's okay. I really...
Do you eat a lot of broccoli? I mean,
no, I need to eat more
probably
broccoli.
Because, oh, well.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think I would profess to have all of the answers by any stretch. I think I have some. I think I have a lot in many cases, but I certainly don't have all of them. But all of those answers are oftentimes informed by others too. Like it's not me in a vacuum in deep thought coming up with stuff on my own. I don't think there are probably savants out there that can do that. Listen, I think I'm a smart guy. I think I'm a very capable picker of kickball teams. I've used that analogy before too. Like I just have a decent instinct.
The big guy in the back. The big guy.
Yeah, the big guy in the back. That guy's gonna pop it over everybody's heads. I just think that a lot of this is casting, right? It's talent acquisition and retention more than anything. So make sure you've got the right boat, the right folks on the boat, and they're aligned with whatever the vision is, and then go amplify that culture and that vision. And I think that's the safest, most pragmatic way to kind of approach it, is to try and to go it alone. I think a lot of people fall into this victim, this fate of I got to do all this myself. I don't think that that's a sustainable or feasible model. You're just going to end up beating yourself up over and over and over and over and over again. And back to the conversation earlier, I think the collaboration is invaluable in those sorts of scenarios.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for finding people that can tell you you're full of it to your face, and for you to take them seriously. And I think that's helpful. I don't care where you don't have to be a CEO for that. I think being open to that is good for anybody's humanity. I think it's important to be able to have something like, really, you think so? This doesn't look good on me? Oh my God. I wasn't even thinking about that. But seriously, I think it's, you hit on a theme that I cover as early as I can. When I first work with a new founder, I'm like, do you have another great founder on your team? No. Okay. So do you trust the people that you have to tell you to change direction? No. Okay. Well, you need to. Yeah. Let's see how we can get there. You need somebody. It's rare for a company to have two great founders. It really is. If they do, fantastic. It's amazing, but it's just rare.
I think the hardest, I'll share this one other bit of color for folks coming up, independent of being a CEO or moving into a leadership role. I think the hardest thing, especially folks that come up as really strong individual contributors that end up going into management, and I see this in sales leadership a lot, what made you a great individual contributor may make you a terrible manager, right? Because it's like you think everyone should be able to sell the same way you do, and you try to coach. It's like why Michael Jordan never made a great, the best coaches are usually the ones that never were the star players. They sat on the bench and watched the great players. Not to take anything away from Michael Jordan, and I debate with my son all the time because I'm a big Jordan fan as far as greatest of all time versus he's a big LeBron guy. But regardless, I think the natural temptation is to assume everyone should do it the way you're doing it, and the other natural temptation is to try to do it for them. Like there's this control element of like, no, I could do it better than them. I'm going to do it for them. And again, that's the hardest thing to let go coming up. Like you don't need to be the hero. You don't need to be the sun, the star, and the moon. And the reality of it is that's never going to scale. Like if it's only you, if it has to be you coming in every time and doing it, like you can't be three places at once. And so I find that to be the hardest barrier for folks to push through is just sort of relinquishing control and knowing that it's delegation, and it's realizing you're playing a different role now than you were before. You're not the quarterback throwing the pass per se. You're the coach or the general manager or whatever level or role you're in. It's not about you being on the field, even though maybe you once did play on the field and you were the best quarterback. That's not your role anymore. And a lot of people, amazingly, as they come up, they think they want to be in management. They think it's more stable. They're going to make more money. They want to be in leadership, things like that. They get into that environment and they quickly realize, holy shit, this sucks. I hate managing people. I just listen to people complain and whine. I get to deal with personnel issues all the time. I just want to go carry a bag. And lots of really, really talented ICs that end up going back to carrying a bag and being an individual contributor, which I think is totally great. I think that's good for you. You should do that. You're going to make way more money and you're going to be way more fulfilled and happy as that role. And there's nothing wrong with it not going into the management or leadership path. It doesn't make you any less valuable as an asset, and more importantly, an asset to yourself, because you're responsible for your own happiness, not a company. So like, go do you. Just recognize that in yourself. If you're in that role and you don't like it, there's probably a reason why you don't like it, and it's okay to go back to what once made you happy. That's not a failure. It's actually success, and it takes a lot to be able to acknowledge that. And I've seen a lot of people not do that fast enough.
It takes strength. It takes belief in oneself, and unpacking that for someone for the first time and having that aha moment where their eyes go wide and they're like, oh, wow, maybe I really shouldn't be responsible for other people. Maybe I should. Maybe what I really enjoyed. Yeah, maybe you should be, maybe you should be removed from responsibility from other people. I don't want to say that, but, maybe you should get closer to your customer because they don't mind. It's the people that work for you. They're like, there's going to be a palace coup here. I'm going to lead it, and it's not going to be pretty. But when you're in that chair, when you're in that CEO chair, it becomes even more important because you're working with people who are very accomplished, who have much more lofty aspirations for themselves in terms of self-actualization, which is a very big term that's difficult. We're not going to go through that. But being able to accommodate that and really look them in the eye and say, where do you want to go with your world? And how can we align what you're doing and what this company needs to achieve with that? That, as you know, my friend, is a furball. That's a furball. I wish you tons of luck and success. No, sincerely, I do. I wish you the absolute epitome of satisfaction and success. Travis, it has been beyond a pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate you joining me today on MarTalks.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, I would love to be self-actualized. That would be amazing. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I feel very fortunate to be where I am, and I'm certainly stopping to smell the roses. Maybe I don't stop as much as I did 10 years ago. But
pull the frick over, dude. Pull over.
I appreciate the time. I'm flattered you'd even have me on, and always, man. I enjoy the conversation. This has been fun.
And that's been our time with Travis Hess, CEO of BigCommerce. This is Daryl from MarTalks signing off. Thanks for joining us.